This guy got himself into a situation where, I mean, and now he's basically taking the red flags, the warning signs he should have paid attention to himself, and using them to harass and insult and denigrate this younger woman, Billie Dawn Webb. He's saying things like, well, Billie, when you were 18, Onision invited you into their lives. She was an 18-year-old high school dropout. And Onision paid her, according to him, paid her $10,000. 10,000 US dollars. He offered to buy her a car, and he was paying for her to get a driver's license so that he could buy her a car. And he was committed to paying for her tuition so she could go to a college for cosmetology, beauty school. You tell me, Onision, did you fall in love with this girl? Did you choose her despite those red flags or because of them?
It's scary to watch. I just feel like this whole thing started with Greg being very predatory to underage girls, and now it has extended into Lainey's territory, where she is now not only facilitating his actions, but also going out on her own, doing the same sorts of things. Are you scared by all this? Truthfully, a little bit. My heart's kind of been beating out of my chest all day. I really wanted to just come forward and talk about all of these different things that happened. But if you look even at just the things that have blown up on Twitter since I came out, there has been so many different young women coming forward, like Shannon or Haley or Lane, all of these different people coming forward with their own information and their own stories about what Greg has done to them that has absolutely nothing to do with even what I have said. He has done this to so many different people, and she has done this to so many different people, and they work collectively to find these young girls and to contact them, and they offer them money and presents and free trips, concert tickets. They offer them so much to come and live there, to convince them that they will have a better life because they have money and they have a big house and they have all of this stuff that they can give to them.
Onision now says she comes from a bad home and she has a traumatic past. Onision says publicly, and the girl is not happy about it, publicly, that this girl had a traumatic experience with being a victim of rape of some kind, that she was a victim of having some terrible situation. She had an abortion. This stuff is all vague, and I think it's made more vague so that it's even more defamatory towards her and so on. He's really doing this to shame and humiliate her. And he says that she comes from a bad family, a family of criminals, and she's grown up in these... Okay, Onision, okay. So, do you want us to believe that you chose her? Because you picked her. You chose her, and you paid for her airplane ticket, and you put $10,000 in her pocket for her time. Are you saying you chose her despite those facts or because of them?
I was either 18 or I had just turned 19. Greg specifically uses a lot of tactics to keep people silent and to not speak about it. And he clearly went on a smear campaign about my best friend and I. What were those things? Well, if you look up, even just Google manipulation tactics, there's not really a point that he doesn't hit. So he tries to find where you're vulnerable. He tries to get information about you. He asks pointed questions. The way he words things are very pointed. So you can he either paints you as this bad person in the way that you answer or you agree with him. And it's the way that he speaks. It's the way he communicates with people. It's the way, it's really a lot of different things. And if you are aware of these sort of manipulation tactics, it's pretty easy to pick up on. But if you don't know, it's very easy to get taken advantage of like that. But I have a long history of dealing with manipulative people. I'm very good with my words and the way that I structure my sentences. And to me, when I went there, it was very evident that he was prying, or he was sort of asking pointed questions and doing that sort of thing. And I actually went out of my way to not give Greg a lot of information about myself or my life, because I could tell that he was digging and he was trying to sort of get as much as he could out of me. And I realized pretty quickly the way that he was doing that. So a lot of the issues that I would normally have, I actually avoided, because I caught on pretty quick to what he was doing.
There are some 18-year-olds who are, I think, so pugnacious, so self-confident, so self-reliant that they could cope with the situation this young woman was put into. I assume when she was 18 and then 19. I assume she got a year older at some point there. There are some people who could cope with it at that age. Not this one, Greg. Not this one, Onision. I think of all the 18-year-olds you could possibly profile, you yourself, Onision, Greg, you yourself, in condemning this woman, in defaming her and denouncing her this way, you are listing off exactly the reasons, exactly the factors that would make her weak, susceptible, unable to resist, unable to stand up for herself, unable to enter into this especially high stress and bizarre relationship, a three-way relationship with, a 30-year-old man, putting money in her pocket and buying her a car. You've listed off so many factors that don't reflect badly on her. They reflect badly on you, Greg.
People are saying that we had sexual conversations or were planning on having sexual relations when I was underage, and we never did.
I do want to say that she said they never had these types of conversations, and if that's true, then what is this? This is a text from Sarah saying she's about to take a shower. Lainey saying without me, winky face. She's saying yeah, and then she says, what would you do if I was there? That seems very sexual in nature, and I do provide in the video in the description multiple screenshots of this same type of behavior. This is another screenshot that was majorly concerning to me. So this is a screenshot that was sent by Madison. This is from Madison to Sarah. I believe it's one of the only conversations they had. It's from 3/27 of 2015, 5:53 p.m. You're going to see Madison in the blue saying, yikes, lol. So how do you know Lainey? Met her on Twitter, then our mutual friend Regina told her that she could trust me, so Lainey kicked me her number. Rad, yup, lol. Who's Regina? Regina, Lainey's friend for 2 years. That's awesome. How old are you and Regina? We're both minors. Little ones, how old? Psh, not that little. I'm legal in less than a year and a half, so 16. That's the age of consent in Washington. Just seeing if it was the same in Michigan. So that's pretty crazy. Why do they even bring up age of consent laws? They are both minors and they were both talking to Lainey. This is what Madison had to say. So essentially his ex-girlfriend Shiloh and I became friends after Greg told lies publicly about me. Someone sent her Instagram to me. I waited a few days to decide and finally reached out. I finally had someone I could vent to about Greg for the first time because none of my friends ever met him and saw the side of him that I did. We talked about everything she went through with Greg. Not all of it was public. I didn't know what was and what wasn't. I assumed her age when they started dating was not public information. I was told she was 16 years old. So when I went on Drunken Peasants, I had half a beer. I was not drunk. I was 100% sober, and Billie was defending Greg so passionately. I was angry. I stated something along the lines of me knowing that he has had relationships with younger women, and I stated that he had pedophilia-like connotations. That was my exact phrasing. Didn't straight call him a pedophile because I knew that legally he was not, but I used that term because it was my personal opinion. I felt it very close to being that way. He told me that he had slept with Shiloh a few days after her 17th birthday, not 16th. However, he breezed over the fact that their online relationship began when she was 16. He signed his divorce papers in front of Shiloh and after Googling the law, slept with her. That is what I can comfortably share of that situation.
The earlier video I made on this topic tried to take a tone of being helpful, not conciliatory, but helpful towards Greg, and talking about what his problems had been and why, with some kind of comparing and contrasting observations on my own situation as a much smaller YouTuber, but as someone who's nevertheless aware of the dynamic power the internet has to bring people together in romantic relationships, sometimes unexpectedly, but to put us in the position of building on common ground with others who share our interests. I've made a couple videos on this channel in the past year talking about philosophy of ancient Athens, democracy in Athens and Rome, philosophers like Aristotle and Thucydides and Cicero. If my whole channel just consisted of videos of that kind, you know I could meet a woman with that area of interest, whether that's her job or her hobby or just something she also likes to read. I've made videos talking about the TV show Game of Thrones, the books, Song of Ice and Fire. Obviously, if you have a YouTube channel just dedicated to that, one of the main fringe benefits is that it can lead to romance, it can lead to friendships, but meaningful relationships of various kinds of people who share that interest.
The tiny amount of fame I have on the internet is still enough to really result in a lot of women sending me love letters, trying to start relationships with me, sometimes sending me nude emails of themselves, sometimes sending me highly intellectual and yet seductive emails talking about their background and so on. Any level of fame on the internet leads to this potential for these kinds of bizarre relationships.
What seemed to me striking about Greg's situation when I commented on this 2 years ago was that he was not using his platform to build on common interests with women of any age who really shared that with him. He was not meeting other women who write comedy. He was not meeting women who are, say, very self-confident and are experienced actresses in comedy or stand-up comics. And to say he had a lack of options of that kind, to say that you really wouldn't understand how YouTube and the internet works. If he wanted to meet a woman, 25 plus, who was very self-confident, self-aware, sharp, highly experienced comedian, whether stand-up comedy or writing scripted videos for YouTube or what have you, whether someone out of Hollywood or New York City, you name it, he would have met that person. He also could have just built on a relationship with someone like Jacqueline Glenn. We all know he and Jacqueline Glenn were not compatible, but someone who was just experienced in making YouTube videos, comedy, and so on. Someone who could psychologically stand on their own 2 feet, and someone who had something meaningful in common with him as a creative artist, as a filmmaker, as a comedian, or what have you. He could have had that. It's not an accident. This is what already 2 years ago I said. It's not an accident that what he ends up doing is profiling and picking these very, very young women again and again, who, and even compared to other young women the same age, young women who are really psychologically helpless, who have recent traumatic sexual experiences in their lives, women who have absolutely no self-confidence to even speak out against him, and women who are not capable of doing much more with him than what he does with them, which is sit on the carpet and play video games. To some extent, I think all these women babysit his kids because he's already married with kids, and these are supplemental affairs. And you end up playing this very strange and somewhat denigrating role in a love triangle between him and his gender-neutral bisexual wife, who now refers to herself as his husband. That's a pretty perplexing and challenging situation for any 17-year-old or 18-year-old to be in. And, you know, I don't know, maybe there are, I can't even say maybe, there definitely would be a self-confident, hardworking, accomplished, bisexual female comedian who could have played that role and could have made jokes about it and could have been making her own YouTube videos, could have been really collaborating with. That is not what he wanted. That's not what he wanted in Lainey, whose story of how they met and how he recruited her and so on is strangely parallel to the other stories. That's not not what he wanted with any of these things. And you know, when we're teenagers, every relationship challenges us. Every relationship is hard. Every relationship is challenging. because we lack the depth of experience and maturity and self-confidence to handle those relationships. And once you pass a certain turning point in your life, it becomes incumbent on you. It becomes your choice, your decision, your duty to seek out relationships that will challenge you. To not just live in a bubble of people who can't question you or can't disagree with you. Again, even if it's something as dry as Aristotle and Thucydides and ancient Greek philosophy, even if it's something, on the contrary, where there's this little book learning involved, as making a YouTube video and having someone in your life, you can say, look, is this funny? Do you think this was well written? Do you think this script could have been improved? Do you think I should edit this out? Having someone who could stand on their own 2 feet and say, gee, Greg, the last 3 or 4 videos you made, they really lost their sense of direction halfway through. He's never wanted to have someone in his life who could even stand up to him on that level in terms of the professional sphere. It's very clear what he's wanted his whole life. And, to some extent, he's managed to get it again and again. And it's brought about terrible consequences in not just the lives of the women, but in his own life as well. It's brought his own marriage to the brink of divorce repeatedly, including paperwork being served for that. And videos have been made about that on all sides. In many ways, he's let his own success ruin him because of this strange hubris. Because exactly what he wants is never to be challenged. What he wants is to be in a position of unearned authority. And for him now, even as a man in his 30s, the only way he can do that is by dating or recruiting women who are not quite legally underage as his babysitters and as his video game playing, companions. And it's pathetic. And that ultimately is what we all have to judge him for, not the legal technicalities. Legality and morality are 2 totally separate things. And the lesson I want the audience to draw from this, again, this is talking about the morality, not the legality, is to realize that you can face this problem at any age. I can meet a woman who's 25 years old who's just as immature as a 15-year-old. I can meet a woman who's 35 years old and is way more immature than a 25-year-old. The same issues, the same fundamental question of, are you going to challenge yourself? Are you going to allow yourself to be challenged in the relationships in your life, with your colleagues, with your lovers, with your friends? That's a decision each of us has to make. And it's not a decision you make once. It's a decision you make again and again every day. Are you going to keep growing? Are you going to keep challenging yourself? Are you going to bring people into your life who can shake their head and say, this video or this essay or this report, whatever it is you do, this isn't as good as it could be. This isn't your best work. Are you going to invite scrutiny and have friends who are themselves psychologically massive enough that you can scrutinize what they're doing, that you can give them criticism and negative feedback? May not be what you want, may not be what turns you on, but as we all get older, I think it's something each and every one of us very much needs.